Welcome to the bullpen. This is our monthly look at what's going on in the markets featuring Tommy Grisafi from Advanced Trading. Tommy, of course, based at Mayville, North Dakota. Tommy, we always appreciate this chance to connect here at the beginning or end of the month as we turn the calendar. Tell me, what do you see as really the big story as you look to this past month of July?
Well, number one would be weather. Number two would be Ukraine. Some people may say it's Ukraine than weather. Nonetheless, those two are both very important when it comes to agricultural trade, supply and demand on the big picture on the world numbers. We've seen some other wild things happen. It just can't be a one. I got to have more chance to have more than one answer. The Fed raised rates again. Stock market's on fire. There's so fire meaning going up. There's a lot of wild things happening in the world economies and the inflation trade, and there's just total unease and unrest over in Ukraine and Russia, Don.
Well, let's dissect some of that. We had this up and down in this market this past month, a lot of volatility. Really, did we, at the end of the month, have we seen a lot of change from where we were at the end of June?
I'll be looking forward to seeing what the net changes are. But we've been up, we've been down. These hedge funds are getting in real big positions, getting wrong. They put on a real bearish position, and then Russia doesn't go through with the Black Sea deal. They put on a bearish position, it gets hot and dry. They put on a bullish position, it rains across the Midwest. I'm not feeling bad for these money people, but eventually, if they get beat up hard enough, they just kind of leave our markets. And then all this volatility that we've enjoyed, assuming people are enjoying this volatility, maybe some people don't like it, but traders particularly like volatility, and it presents opportunity. As these funds get beat up in the commodity markets, they just may move and go to something a little bit more conservative. Not
What's that mean?
conservative, but conservative. Well, if you're losing in the commodity market, at least you know you can make 5% in a CD.
Right. What's this mean to the traditional hedger out there with all this volatility?
Yeah, a lot of money being sent back and forth. If you're a grain elevator, if you're a farmer who sells futures, or anyone involved in these markets, if you're an end user and you're buying and we go down hard, you're making margin calls. If we're a hedger and we explode up, we had a limit move this month in wheat. A lot of money being sent back and forth from people using these markets and the actual clearing firm and the CME group. A lot of money transactions are happening, and the margins have to be made. If you sell corn at 550 and you love that price and it goes up to 580, you have to send in that money from 550 to 580. That's how the rules go down.
You touched on weather, and we've gone through all this extreme heat. This forecast, the 8 to 14 day outlook looks a little bit cooler, maybe a little bit more moisture, but this week ahead still looks rather dry for at least the northern corn belt. What's the weather story as we go into August?
Well, there's the haves and have-nots. There's probably enough adequate moisture that's hit the Midwest here in the last month to say we're going to have some type of corn crop. The talk of this is 2012 has pretty much went away. We've seen areas that have been in prolonged droughts have an incredible amount of rain. That would be like Kansas and other areas. When it rains real hard. Not everyone's getting the rain. I know up north by you all, you need some rains in a big way. North Dakota and South Dakota could use a nice slow couple-day rain. If you were to receive that, crops could really finish up well. So some people have been blessed with great rains, and it's looking like there could be some really nice corn in parts of the country. Now, the other part of that equation is, assuming we do have a decent corn crop, is who are we going to sell it to? What's our ending carryout going to look? What's the USDA going to tell us about final planted acres versus harvested acres? That's the math of it. But no matter what, it kind of seems like we're going to have a pretty good carryout coming into 23, the end of 23 and the beginning of 24.
So we have the next supply demand report on the 11th, if I'm not mistaken. When you take a look at it, this is, if I believe this will be the first time we'll start to see farmer surveys in this run of crop reports for USDA. What kind of impact do you see that having on us when we go into these numbers here at mid-month?
We'll have a report. It could affect things. I think you'll see the overall yield of corn start to get toned down a little bit. Obviously, these are farmer surveys, and when the USDA collects data, by the time they release it, it's sometimes a lot of things have changed in the world. We'll see. Anytime now the USDA speaks at a level of 550 corn and $14 beans and $8 and $9 wheat, when they're talking, markets could move, and headlines are moving markets. Limit up. We've had come real close to some limit down days. So between the headlines and what the USDA is going to say and continued weather, we're going to have some more volatility right into the end of the year, Don.
Does that put more significance on things like the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, those kind of crop perspectives that we see out there?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of ice on the Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Now, if we stay cool and get adequate rain coming into it, obviously that would change people's tone. But if the rain just doesn't show up and we start to throw some heat into August, we'll start talking about, can we really have a 52 bushel yield in beans? I'm not so sure that could happen if we don't have adequate rains. But they say the genetics are good. All the seed companies are advertising saying this is a great product and it can handle stress. Well, this year we threw a lot of stress at the crops early. We'll see how they do.
You mentioned the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Russia did not renew as had been anticipated, but it seems like the war has escalated since then. We've had bombings at the port of Odessa and some of the other grain storage facilities. They've effectively blockaded things on the Danube River. It's going to be pretty tough moving anything out of Ukraine. Does that have long-term consequences for this market?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole world's having to produce more grain because it looks like Ukraine's not going to necessarily be in the grain business so much. And then when they do come back online, whether it's Ukraine or Russia or whatever happens over there, we're going to have too many people producing too much grain. So every acre that's lost in Ukraine is a big win for South American farmers. Eventually, we're going to massively overproduce these crops. It could take a few years, but things don't look so good. Looking out to 25 and 26, we could have a much lower grain market.
Outside markets, we've seen oil creeping up. You talked about the stock market being on fire. What do you see happening in that trade?
Oil is trading a little elevated in the 80s. I filled up the other day, real close to $4 gas for the affordable stuff. And you're seeing inflation creep up a little bit just in food. Inflation came back the last month, fuel. You keep an eye on these inflation numbers. Now, with that, the Fed raised rates, the stock market digested it well. Money's looking for a home, and it has several choices. Money can go into a CD at 5%. Money can go in the stock market. Money's coming in and out of the commodity market. People are trying to trade. We're coming into August months. August typically is a little quieter month, a little less volatility unless we get hot and dry, at least when it comes to the commodity markets.
Like to catch in on the livestock guys. This cattle market, it's been hard to find any agreement between packers and feed yards. It really seems like week to week we've only had a handful of cattle trades really happening. At some point, something's got to give. What's happening in this cattle market?
Yeah, the air's getting a little thin up here. You got to be very careful when it comes to being a hedger in cattle and feeder cattle. Sometimes the math's not making sense. I mean, if you're buying cattle and looking at a pretty significant loss, it could get much worse and brings up bad memories of past years when people paid too much for something and then the markets collapse. So we need to be careful up at these levels. They're obviously actionable levels. If the math doesn't make sense, you got to really question why you would start anything, why you'd start a business off on a loss. And of course, the hog guys are really thankful that the hog market's come back in the front months, but the back months don't look so good. The best thing all these folks have going is that the price of corn's come down, soybean meal's come down, and that's going to help people in the animal business.
Tommy, tell me if folks have questions and want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, give us a call, 1-800-664-4383. We'd love to try and answer any questions and help farmers out as we come into these harvest days.
No doubt about it. Tommy Grisafi with us. That is our monthly bullpen report, our monthly update talking market news with Tommy Grisafi with Advanced Trading based at Mayville, North Dakota. Until next time, I'm Don Wick.